5658. The Oppenheimer family and some of their business partners recently announced plans to invest billions of rands into Africa's agricultural sector, amongst others. Investment by international companies, private equity funds, and even other governments in Africa's agricultural sector increased dramatically over the past few years. However, these investments can hold the promise of a better future or deprive normal people of their land and livelihoods. For more on this, we're talking today to head of Deloitte Consulting's Africa Agri-Business Unit, Omri van Zyl. Omri, good morning, and thank you for joining us once again on AGRI TV.
Thank you, Tobo.
Why is investment into Africa's agricultural sector such a lucrative thing these days, despite the risk that is involved? I mean, we're talking wars, we're talking political instability, we're talking lack of infrastructure, yet we're still seeing more people coming in.
Yes. What's happening is that commodity prices are on the rise. And with increasing populations, the need for food is more and more. So the supply, or the demands would exceed the supply going forward. Africa has a very low base, very low cost base, low labor cost base as well. So that's why a lot of countries are looking and companies are looking at Africa for agriculture investments.
Now, what sort of investment is coming in? Who is investing and how do they stand to benefit?
So actually, in our research, it's very interesting because there are various players. You have private equity people coming in, focusing specifically on things like biofuel, the extrapolation of that. Then you have state-owned entities from China investing heavily in Africa. You have the Kuwaiti, the Qatari governments that have investment funds that are investing in Africa. And then you also have donors like AGRI, the Alliance for the Green Revolution in Africa. They're also investing. So, and then governments themselves are co-investing with these investors. So there's various sources, but the investment activity is fairly lively at the moment.
Is it a matter of cash injection? Is it a matter of investing in infrastructure? Where are they coming in?
It's a combination of the two. There is infrastructure. Normally the government would set up, for example, roads and transportation networks, and the investor would, for example, set up a agri-processing facility to take the products out to market. So it's a combination of those things.
Okay. Now, you see, some agricultural investment is, in developing countries in particular, is seen as a negative thing. Like I mentioned earlier on, people feel like you're coming in, you're taking the land, you're stripping us of our resources, and you're pretty much leaving minimal profit in the country. Is this a fair observation?
What is happening is many African countries are poor. And in order to fuel the economy and diversify the economy, agriculture investment is probably the best way of alleviating poverty and, and, for example, hunger. So there is a job creation element to these investments. There's also an economic benefit to these investments. On the downside, there would be, for example, pastoral farmers would not have access to the land, and where cattle was their livelihood, they might not have that. So it's a double-edged sword, I would say. What is important is that investments are done in a responsible manner, and that countries actually and the investors themselves take account of what they do and the impact that would have on the socio-economic status and the social-cultural dimensions of that specific country.
Now, is there a deliberate effort from the country itself, for example, this time in South Africa, to actually say to these investors within the agreement that part of the requirement is that you invest in rural development?
In South Africa, it's not that apparent. I think there are some negative perceptions around investing in agriculture in South Africa. If I compare that, for example, to how tenacious investors are in investing in Zambia, for example, or Tanzania. So I think generally investors need to take these things into consideration, but it also depends whether it's a private equity fund or, you know, a donor fund investing. I think private equity funds, they want a return on investment. They have investors they have to account to. It's a pretty black and white scenario for them. I think a lot of them try to uplift communities. They have to use farm workers and people that are involved in the industry in any event. So I think it's a balancing act.
What can communities do, though? That's what I want to get into, to unlock this investment so that it benefits the development of the rural communities.
That's very interesting. We're actually doing a project at the moment with a community in Mpumalanga that are working with private sector players to actually source investment. And it was very illuminating for me interacting with them, because they are really taking this forward, and they are working with government to put structures in place in order to get these investments in and to uplift the whole community. So I think it's an educational thing, but partnership is very important.
What's the future for such deals, and how do you see them working out in the future?
Well, I hope the future looks very, very good for us in South Africa. The South African government, I think, are trying to invest in building up a structure that would work. I think we're still far off from where we could be, and I think rural people are feeling the pinch. So I think if we have a proper strategy and we're executing on that with skill, we can uplift communities and really make a big difference to poverty alleviation and job creation in rural areas.
Omri, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tabo.
Agrarian transformation, rural development, and land reform. These are the core structures of the Comprehensive Rural Development Program. The Department of Rural Development and Land